This is Dr. Kim, licensed clinical psychologist and host of Love to Heal. Today we have an incredible guest with an extensive acting background, including theater, television, and film. Thank you so much for being here today, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm such a fan of yours.
I'm a fan of yours. I was reading your resume and I saw we have one thing in common, which is that we were both on ID, investigation discovery, which is so interesting because the topic today is narcissistic personality disorder. And that's exactly what I
Yes.
talked about. How was your experience on that show? And do you get into that type of content as well? Are you a fan of ID?
Oh, for sure. I love anything with like horror. And in that scene that I did, I met a killer in a car
Ooh,
and then he like picked me up and then killed me later.
amazing. I really
Really
got to
fun.
check that out. You have to check that out. Yeah, so today we're going to talk a little bit about narcissistic personality disorder. And there is a differentiation between narcissistic traits and narcissistic personality disorder. But tell me, you have been creating some content around the subject. How did you get into it?
Well, I just think it's so fascinating and I've done so much research on it. I was dating a guy and then my therapist had told me at the time, "Oh, he's a narcissist."
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what that means."
Right.
But then I saw a TikTok about it and it was describing literally every single trait that he had and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense." And there's so many more videos on TikTok about it and then I just kept educating myself.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're educating other people too. I love that you're putting that out there. So let's talk about the differentiation first so everyone knows, and that's a meaty subject. Everybody wants to label people narcissists, and I want to talk about the difference between the traits and the full-blown disorder. So just for anyone that's listening, if you don't know, narcissistic traits is really someone that has they really have a desire for power, prestige, for money at times. There's obviously a lot of variance between people like that, but a lot of successful people have these traits. Now, that does not mean they have full blown narcissistic personality disorder. And it certainly does not mean that they are narcissistic psychopaths like some killers we talk about. But it does mean that they can irritate others. And if we go into full blown the disorder, it means they're affected as far as their relationships and their career. So in order to have any full blown disorder, you actually have to be having some major area of life being affected negatively. But a lot of times they are exploitative, so they're exploiting other people, and they definitely lack empathy. So that's when we're talking about full blown narcissistic personality disorder as opposed to just simply the traits. Because if you have narcissistic traits, you can also have empathy. But I wanted to make that distinction for everybody so they can understand the difference. So tell me, what has been your experience? Walk me through it. Like, what are the red flags? What was your experience?
Red flags. Well, first, I want to go off what you just said. I think there's such a stigma with like narcissistic personality disorder. Everyone has narcissistic traits.
A lot of
And
successful people do, yes.
a lot of people, yes.
A lot of,
And
yeah,
so it's so easy to be like, "Oh, my ex was sucked. He was a narcissist." But there's
right,
so much more that goes into it.
right.
Um, some red flags when you're first meeting a narcissist, like if you go on a first date, is they'll mirror you on the date and just agree with everything you're saying and be like, "Oh, no way. I love my family too." Like,
Mm.
it's fascinating. What other red flags? I don't know. What
Love, well, love bombing. So they're
love
going over
bombing?
too fast, too soon. So they want to make a
Yes.
move quickly. They want to shower you with compliments. They're going to shower you with gifts a lot of times. They may want to take you on a lot of vacations or talk about marriage too soon, talk about moving in too soon. Now, there are some people, especially codependents, that just want to move in quickly. Some people are guilty of that. But if you're seeing a lot of these signs where it's like showering with compliments, gifts, things like that, that's another red flag, and that's called love
Hmm.
bombing.
And future faking.
Future
That
faking.
too.
Why don't you break that down for them?
Oh my gosh. So future faking is when they make a promise for something in the future and that's all it is. It's just words, a promise with no action. They won't follow through. And it just keeps like, it's like, it keeps pulling you in like, oh, maybe we will go on that dinner date. And it just never happens. And that's
Right.
how they keep you on the hook.
Or maybe we'll commit one day, and maybe they're able to
Right.
keep you in that casual space. That's another thing. Another thing that
Mhm.
I see is isolation. So they might criticize family members, friends. They want to isolate you, and that's especially problematic when you move in with them. That's definitely a key piece there. And even if you're not living together, that can also be problematic because now you're only leaning in on the person that's criticizing you and potentially affecting your self-esteem negatively. Have you seen isolation with anyone that you know? Have you seen them try to do that piece, or is that just another sign?
Um, the isolation, it did happen a little bit with me. They will sometimes keep their supply a secret from the world, and that's a way they can isolate you and
Mhm.
have other supply without you knowing. So,
Absolutely.
mhm.
Yeah, and then there is hoovering. So they kind of
Oh,
want to get you, they want to get you back in there, and it's basically trying to suck you back in, hence the term hoover. So they're hoovering, they're trying to get you back when you're trying to pull away because you're saying this doesn't feel good anymore. And as soon as you dip out, that's exactly when they're wanting to push more and to get in there more. And that's why you'll find when they try to break up with people like this, that person will try to charm you even more, potentially threaten you covertly or overtly. So they're definitely trying to find a way to get you to be the ego supply again.
oh, and it's all a lie. Like, do not fall for it. It is all just to suck you back in, and then they're gonna start discarding you again.
Definitely. Definitely the criticism is what concerns me the most. So that emotional abuse that people go through, that can be really devastating and it can create a lot of self-doubt. Is that something you also talk about or something that you've seen?
With the devaluation?
Hmm.
Oh yeah, it's just mind-blowing because it's so different from the love bombing. It makes you think that you're going crazy or there's something wrong with you, and I definitely experienced that. It's like, what am I doing wrong? How do I get this person back that I liked and I fell for in the beginning? And it creates that cognitive dissonance.
Absolutely. So it kind of feels addictive. I mean, it's hard to
It's
not.
so addicting.
Yeah, a lot of people beat themselves up because they're like, "Why am I still addicted to this person? Why do I keep wanting to come back?" Because they love bombed you, because they gave you this world that you had never seen before. When you try to compare your other exes to them or other people in your life, maybe even your family members, maybe you've never felt that high before, or maybe even that good about yourself because they were really building you up at first, and now they are tearing you down, and that's to make you weaker so that you
Mhm.
can be a sure sense of ego supply for them. And that can be really devastating.
Yeah, it really is like a high I haven't ever experienced before. It's like a drug. You just
It
get
really is.
like
Yeah, it's like chasing the dragon.
it becomes addicting. Like,
Yeah.
where are they? What are they doing? When am I going to see them again? Because they will I don't know what, I can't remember the name, but it's like they'll give you breadcrumbing a little bit, like
Yes.
they'll like start to pull back,
Uh,
and then it's a way for them to do that.
it's
Yeah.
a lot. It's a lot. It's hard for people to get out of it too. And I have to say, like, people going through regular breakups without dealing with someone with a severe personality disorder are already having a tough time. And it's already lasting much longer a lot of times than someone that's dealing with this with someone who was emotionally abusive. So to actually compound that, and that's going to make you so confused because now they act like you're the bad guy. We call that gaslighting. And they make you feel like it's your fault, that the relationship didn't work out. So you're constantly questioning and wondering, why am I still fiending for this person? And why is it so much harder to move on from this and maybe a prior relationship? So yeah, I
Yeah.
feel for anyone that's been through that. I have a big heart for it because it's already hard enough with breakups, but to be dealing with that, it's compounded.
It's unlike any other breakup. It's totally different because they're not a healthy person.
Yeah, what
Everything, they're just fake. Everything about them isn't real.
it is artificial. And I mean how do they develop? Really, I mean, typically it's like an ego wound. Sometimes they'll have parents who really built them up. And then at some point they get ego wounded by the world. So their view of themselves early on does not match what the world is giving them. So they're giving them that feedback. It might be appropriate feedback, I don't, depending on how they're acting. But that feedback can be negative, and now they're more ego wounded and they have something to prove. The problem is that they're not just going for success, money, prestige like some people with the narcissistic traits. They're actually going to try to wound other people because they feel so ego wounded. So that is where it can get really pathological and tough. And that's why people always have to educate themselves because they really are confused by what exactly it is they're dealing with.
There's such shame that comes along with the disorder, and they're just not happy people, and you're never going to make them happy. No one's ever going to be enough. They're always going to be looking for supply, and it sucks.
What did you see as far as like coming out of it? Did you feel like there were certain things that really made you more resilient? What did you have to do? What mindset did you have to be in? And what did that look like on a daily basis?
um, I'm actually so thankful that I went through it, because I think I'm stronger than I've ever been before, and it's taught me how to set boundaries and
Yeah.
how to ignore red flags when I first start seeing somebody. I feel like I'm super quick at cutting things off if I see a red flag.
That's amazing. I love that.
Mhm.
I love when people say that they're glad that they came out of this and that they experienced
Mhm.
it because wow, there's so much pain in that to find beauty in it is incredible. So basically, did you stop feeling like you were yourself during the relationship? Did you ever have like a hit as far as your confidence? Did you get away from things that you loved or people that you loved? Like, what did that feel like?
Absolutely. I felt like my attachment style, I was more secure and I was confident in myself. I'm like, who wouldn't want to date me? I'm great. But then after all of this, I developed an anxious attachment style,
Mhm.
just like wondering like when, like, will I ever be enough? And then it just really, they're good. They are sneaky. They will get in and you won't see it coming, and they'll just blow down your confidence. And so now I've worked on that, and now I know all the flags.
Yeah, that's a problem because they're really combining some high intellect in a lot of cases with that pathological behavior, which is so super maladaptive. But
Mm-mm.
unfortunately, they're not caring, and they usually don't get into treatment unless they are mandated by courts or there's an ultimatum there. And even when there's an ultimatum, they could be faking it because their thing is charming. They're very charismatic a lot of
They're
times.
so charming. It's so easy to fall for it.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no way this person could have a personality disorder. They're
yeah.
so nice, and they have flying monkeys, like, lifting them up, and you're like, "I must be crazy."
Yeah, yeah.
Nope.
So that's good. So you feel like at this point, you have to be keen at this point. So you're seeing like what are you seeing? If you're dating, what are
Mhm.
the signs that you're seeing? And what are you like, okay, I want to pause on this. Is it too much or what are you is it too charming? What are you seeing?
Oh, like, from if a guy, like, red flags from a guy?
Yeah.
Um, Definitely, I've learned if you keep texting for a really long period of time without meeting up, that could be a huge red flag, because you
Mhm,
start fantasizing about their personality and how they're going to be.
mhm.
And then when you meet in person, it could be a huge disappointment and you've wasted all that time.
That is so true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big sign. And we don't
Yeah.
know what's going on behind the scenes, and they could have, like you said before, a lot of ego supply, which means they're dating multiple people
Right.
or they're married. Yeah, we don't know what the
Yes.
supply is outside of that too. So
Or,
that's a big
oh, I have a good question. Like, when you're, especially during COVID times,
yeah.
um, I think it's so easy to be like, hey, why don't you just come over to my place? Like, for a first date. And it's such a trap.
That can be an entrapment, absolutely. Yeah, so for that, I mean, basically what you want to do is you want to get to know them, but you want to make sure that you're doing it in ways that are called chunking. So you want to make sure that you're not allotting too much time to someone new because you have to trickle in that and not establish that habit. And now they start expecting it. Now, whether or not they expect it, that's not really your problem, but you don't really want to establish that pattern too soon. So you
Mm-mm.
want to do chunking. Make sure that it's not too much talking too soon, even if you think this person is healthy and has a healthy mindset and has good intentions, you still want to wait because the problem with narcissistic personality disorder is you're not seeing the pathological traits necessarily until a little later, until you're already in love, until you're already potentially committed, or you're just super addicted to the person. So what I say is like, and that's what happened with Chris Watts, and he was deemed a narcissistic psychopath. And the problem is that they got way into it. And then actually, retrospectively, that's when people started seeing, okay, that's where the red flag might have been this. So you're not necessarily seeing the traits until much later. That's why you want to take it slow with people because you don't know
Mhm.
what's around the corner. And sometimes they're not overtly charismatic. They could just be somewhat, they could also be introverted. Now you've got an introverted narcissistic
Yeah.
person and not just narcissistic, but with the actual NPD. So that's why you really want to do the chunking method, where it's just a little bit at a time, taking it slowly. But that's
Okay, I
good,
love
right?
that, the
'Cause,
chunking. And
yeah,
don't go over the first day, the first date to their
don't go
place.
over. No, no. It has. I mean, it should be neutral territory. And then
Mhm,
as soon as they get into yours, now they feel like they can be intrusive. That's definitely where you can see more signs, but you can see some signs even in neutral territory if you let time go by and you watch
mhm.
them closely. So it is good to be your own psychologist in like in a dating realm and to
I
analyze.
know. And
Yeah.
a lot of people who have experienced the narcissistic abuse, they're on dating apps and they can
Mhm.
just easily tell from the apps. Like right away, you could see it in
Yeah.
bios sometimes. You
Let's
get
talk about,
good.
yeah, let's do like a fake bio. So if a bio is a lot of grandiosity, and I'm talking about like this person's like listing, like, I mean, an extensive resume. Again, could these people just be overachieving? Certainly. But what you don't want is them needing a lot of external validation, because you could get
Mm,
someone with narcissistic traits or just someone that's overachieving who doesn't need that validation all the time. They actually feel really good and intrinsically motivated simply by just going for their goals. But as soon as they start fishing for a lot of compliments, that can be a big sign right there. And you can see that even in
ooh.
a bio for dating.
And
So,
it's such a trap because, as an empath, you're like, oh, I just want to lift their spirits. They're doubting themselves. Oh, like, don't fall for it.
yeah, that's a hard one. That is a very much a hard one. I think that's actually, as far as like things I've had to work on, people pleasing has been a big one. So,
Yeah.
so people that feel that are very empathic, like you said, and very attuned, that can be tough because you're like, well, this person maybe was wounded early on. Like maybe I could fix it. But the problem with narcissistic personality disorder and personality disorders in general, although they can be remedied with time and with treatment, they're typically long lasting. So not like we're talking about as like a depressive episode necessarily that can remit with medication and with therapy. These are personality disorders are actually things that they need to be worked on typically. And usually they need to have natural consequences before they even want to have some kind of a remediation.
Hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk about once you move on. So you moved
Hmm.
on. What's going on with the mindset after you've started to move on? Are there thoughts that start creeping in? Does it feel like you go backwards and like you have good days, bad days?
Oh yeah, there's definitely good days and bad days. I think time has just been the most helpful thing, and definitely towards the beginning, like right after, that ruminating factor was so big.
That's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of so for anyone, ruminating is basically perseverating, so thinking a lot, having this
Yes.
occupy your thoughts, and you would be surprised like how what a large percentage of the day this can actually take up. Some people say up to 80% of the day when they're going through a breakup, they can be thinking about the ex, and that is exorbitant. So you can just expect that much if you're going to actually heal from something like this, a relationship with someone, with a personality disorder. And again, that's affecting their careers or relationships potentially, and they have a lack of empathy. So now we're talking about just
Mhm.
doing things that are simply self-serving, not simply
Mhm.
going for success like people with the traits, but they are actually going to exploit people. They are willing to take risks, to take chances at other people's expenses,
Mhm.
and it can be devastating for anyone around them.
Yeah. I mean, when you're moving on, you just have to start doing things for you, like things that they didn't like. If they liked you wearing like a certain color, don't wear that color anymore. Or if they didn't like you hanging out with that friend, hanging out with that friend,
I
just
love that. That's a good one. And then
mhm.
so little by little you start feeling like yourself. And I should say one of the things I've experienced with actors than ones that have been working actors, or big actors that were beginning in their career, and then ones that have already made it, quote unquote. The one thing that I see is the resilience, and I see
Mhm.
that they're obviously able to overcome a lot of rejection, a lot of no's between yeses, and that's what the ones I see that are working, the ones that are beginning, and the ones that have already, quote unquote, made it. So
Mhm.
can you give us some insight into how you actually get into that mindset to overcome self-doubt, rejection? What's been your experience? And then what have been the tools?
Oh my gosh. Like in terms of the acting world, I face rejection on the daily. I don't even feel anything anymore, honestly. You
That's
just have to
amazing.
keep doing it. And it's been harder to face rejection in the dating world because it's like that's actually who
Mm.
I am. Like when I'm acting, you're rejecting a persona or a character I'm playing. And then in dating, you're rejecting me. So
What interesting differentiation. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a difference there, but you don't really think about that because sometimes you'll just think about self-doubt or rejection all in one. So what's the difference? How did you get to the point in acting? Was it early on where you would be rejected and that would get to you? And how did you talk yourself out of that? Or did you have coaches that helped shape that?
yeah, I take classes and you just have to keep going. I mean, you're not for everybody and it's going to take, 100 tries, and on the 100th try, if you get it, then it's worth it. It's
Yeah.
just the reward you get once you finally book something, or it's the best feeling ever, and it's worth keep trying.
That's amazing. So I mean, you're basically playing the numbers game, and
Yes.
it's really perception too. Because when you look and you talk to actors and singers, the ones that are really resilient typically are thinking of it more like a numbers game, but they're also in a place of flow. So a flow state is really feeling content about the process. So you
Yeah.
might not like everything about the process, but maybe you don't mind auditions. Maybe you love the classes.
Oh
Um,
yeah, you have to find the
maybe
joy in it.
the joy in it, because otherwise nothing is going to sustain. So that's where I see them really be resilient there. And then
Oh
so
yeah.
it's much more difficult dating. So that's actually you. It's not you as an actor, but it's actually you. So you're feeling it. So it's still hard to not
Yes.
take things personally, is what you're saying.
Yes, but I mean, it's the same thing. It's a numbers game too with dating. It's like
Yeah, it
you
is.
go on 20 dates, and maybe on the 20th date you'll find your soulmate or something. You just have
It's
to
so
keep
true.
trying and put yourself out there.
So you broke it down as far as it not being a fit as far as acting. Tell us a little bit about that. I know it seems simplistic potentially, but for us, break it down for us. How is it not a fit in acting? What does that look like? What does that mean?
Like when you get rejected,
Hmm.
oh, it could be anything. It's so subjective in the acting world. It could be my hair is too long, my hair is too short, my voice is too high. Um, the director is closer friends with somebody else that auditioned. It's all who you know too. It's just you have to keep putting yourself out there, and the more you do it and the more you familiarize yourself with like everybody in the business, then it'll be your time.
That's amazing. And then as far as
Yeah.
dating, okay, so you made a point earlier that said you said that it's not necessarily a fit with acting, right? I
Yeah.
feel like automatically my brain goes to, okay, then it's not a fit with acting when you're dating people, but it's still for you. You're still applying that it's more personal for with dating. Do you
Mhm.
ever do you ever think to yourself, this is not necessarily a fit? Like, are there certain traits that you're looking for that maybe would make that other person not a fit? How would
Oh
you
yeah.
respond dating?
I feel like, oh, that's the struggle. I feel so bad like having to reject guys. It's not easy having to tell someone, sorry, I don't think it's gonna work out. Ugh, but you gotta do it
You have
sooner
to do
rather
it.
than later.
Yes, I love that you do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's much more empathic than ghosting someone. I feel like that's information.
I
And
know.
and it's really, I think that I know people take it much easier when they just say it's not a fit, or you're looking for something else.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on ghosting? There's any time where it could be appropriate or no?
Well, you know that with ghosting, after a breakup, if someone is taking you for granted, and they're doing things like either hoovering, which means trying to suck you back into something,
Mhm.
or they're simply just fishing, they're just being curious. They haven't really changed. They haven't really changed their mind. They're just throwing out like a hey, or a quick emoji, or a quick compliment. In my opinion, I do think it's appropriate to ghost in that
Okay.
situation. But if they're saying something sincere and they don't have a history of being critical or emotionally abusive, something like that, then obviously if they say something sincere, then you wouldn't necessarily need to do that. You wouldn't need to ignore them, because that's what ghosting is. You're ignoring someone. And
Mhm.
that, going back to narcissistic personality, that can be extreme, like an extreme fuel for them. And they can want to lash out. Now their
Oh,
ego
yeah.
wounds you even more. So you do have to be prepared for that. And that's why when you try to break up with them, don't think they're going to take that easily. What you really have to do is already have a plan. Know where you're going to
Absolutely.
move, know who your support system is. Maybe they didn't even know you were rebuilding this social support this entire time before you got strong enough to break it off. And don't
Mhm.
expect them to not chase you. Now, at that point, obviously, you have to tell them to stay away. And that's so tough for you because you're not over them. And again,
Right.
making it dually punitive to actually have to pull away from someone like this.
Hmm.
But yeah, ghosting I think is applicable and appropriate in certain situations, especially if you have a long history of a relationship and that person ended up breaking up with you, taking you for granted, and now they're just throwing out things for no reason or just because
Yeah.
they're curious. So at that point, you could consider ghosting at that point.
Okay. Yeah. Especially when you've already set a boundary and they've crossed it.
Yes, that is exactly key. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Like going back on what you were saying, I think gray rocking is the best way to just get over a narcissist and just it really gets them angry when you gray rock, but it's the best way to handle it in that
Yeah, it
situation.
really is. Can you break that down for them?
So gray rocking is just when you go completely silent and don't react emotionally to anything that they say. Just like yes or no answers and just to the point,
Yeah, to
and
the
don't
point.
give them a reaction. If they're trying to like argue with you, just no reaction
Yeah,
is the
they
best.
definitely that's right. They definitely see high emotionality,
Mhm.
reactivity as potential interest, and they may think that
Yeah.
everything looks like interest. So as soon as you start being a little bit more robotic or neutral with your responses or short, yes, they're going to get angry at first, but they're actually going to be trained to get the message that maybe on the other side, the emotions aren't there and that consistency. And that's if you're forced to talk to this person for some
Yeah.
reason.
Most of the
Otherwise,
time, oh, they will not get the message. They're crazy, some of
yeah.
them.
Well, they're definitely ego wounded at that point, so that's going to be very tough for them. Yeah, so I love the fact that you are making this content for other people and that you share it. How does it feel to educate other people about narcissistic personality disorder?
It feels so good knowing how many people I'm helping. Like when I first started sharing this, it's kind of therapeutic in a way. It's helping me. Like
Yeah.
when I make a video with something he said to me, and everyone in the comments is like, wow, this person sucks. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you for validating my feelings. Yes, you're
Yeah.
right.
And everyone should know you are also like comedically trained actor. So a lot of your stuff is amazing. It's like infotainment. So you're able to give information while also being hilarious at some points. Uh,
Thank you. I
I
try to
love
do a
it.
bunch of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very consumable material.
Thank you.
So is there anything else you want to tell people? Like, what would you say? Like, what is the big takeaway as far as healing from a relationship or some kind of dynamic, whether it's familial or an ex? What is the big takeaway for you? What are the keys to get to really feel healed?
I would definitely just go gray rock, block them. Don't look at their profile and just focus on you and do things that you love and distract yourself. Surround you with people that love you and focus on other things. Try to distract yourself.
I love that. So what is igniting you now that you've been healing or
Yes.
healed from this situation? What ignites you? What gets you excited nowadays?
For dating
No, in
or,
life,
oh,
career,
yes.
hobbies, like all of that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been in this acting class. My acting, it's a great distraction. And I like to cook and I love working out and just things like that are just and to sing.
That and you sing. Can I tell you something? I checked out your video and I saw
Oh
you
no.
singing Whitney Houston. That was amazing.
Yes.
You're
Oh, thank
amazing. You hit
you.
those notes. I was so
Thank
impressed.
you. Yes,
Yeah,
I miss karaoke so much. I need it to be back.
that's true. I mean, I guess people are probably doing it on apps and things like that, but that's amazing.
Oh my gosh, I need to get some apps. Yeah, like
Yeah, so she's singing, she's acting. So then you're working out too. Obviously, that's like a natural antidepressant effect
oh
there.
yeah.
But going for your dreams, I just find it so inspiring. And I've said it before, and it sometimes feels superficial to say how important it is after a breakup to actually go for your dreams. But it is
Mhm.
based on positive psychology. You have to have meaning and purpose. You have to be engaged in activity, and you need connection. And those are the things that make up contentment.
Mhm.
So for you, how important is it for you to pursue your career goals?
It's everything. I've sacrificed so much and I can't see myself doing anything else. So I better, better this or nothing. So
That's amazing. Do you
yeah.
feel like you're more attuned as far as like relating to other people, your friends, or people that you're dating because of your acting skills?
Absolutely. I feel like I definitely pick up on other people's emotions a lot more easily now. And especially since I've done all this research with narcissism, it's just fascinating and attachment styles. I feel like I learned so much.
That's that's amazing. Yeah, I was thinking a lot of times we're taught to do role plays with clients in the room. Sometimes they're doing like the empty chair thing where they're pretending like they're talking to someone, but it's an empty chair, things like that. But I do feel like actors have an edge as far as attunement and really
Hmm.
reading facial expressions.
Oh
That
yeah,
and it really gives you an edge to deal with people interpersonally. So that's important for negotiation, relationships, everything like that.
absolutely. Yeah.
And you've
Know how
done
to work.
you've done improv too, right?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Good. I feel like that's really cathartic for people too when they're going through pain to try that.
Oh yeah. I
But
mean,
you do it in the big leagues. Yeah.
yes, I do work at a comedy club too, or well, I
Really?
did. It's closed.
Yeah.
But we need comedy so much right now, and it sucks that none of the clubs are open. Ugh, because especially like during this time, we need all a lot to laugh.
No, it's amazing. I have to say, if you're watching this on video or the podcast, you should check out the video because really, truly, you can see like her facial expressions are genuine. I'm saying this from the
Thank you.
perspective of a psychologist. They're genuine, but you can feel there's something about you. You don't have to even turn the volume on when you're seeing your content because it feels like you're doing it for the person on the other side of that camera to be lifted.
Good.
It actually feels empathic. Just, I mean, the way you
Thank
use
you.
your body
Honestly,
language, your facial expressions.
thank you. A lot of the times when I do my videos, like I'll think of a topic and I just need to say something. And most of the time it's like stuff I need to say to myself. And I'll just think about that. Like, I need to say this to myself and then other people love it. And I
It's
help.
amazing because it's so genuine. I love
Thank you.
content creators
Good.
like that. So
Yes, it is.
so
Yours is
beautiful.
too. All of your videos, you have such a like calm speaking voice,
Just so
and it's so calming to watch, and especially like when you're going over how to get over an ex, it just puts me in a good place.
Oh, I love that. You're so sweet. Well, you guys have to
Yes.
check her out. I could talk to you forever, and I hope to talk to you soon. But where can they find you?
Oh my gosh, you can find me on TikTok, Emily Sargent 5, and it's on Instagram as well, Emily Sargent 5.
Emily Sargent, and we'll have her information in the show notes. And I have been so happy to talk to you tonight. That time went by so fast.
It
And
really did.
and it's incredible that you're sharing your dreams with the world. And it's really inspirational what you do for a living. I know the work that it takes to put into it and the resilience and the fact that you're doing it at all shows other people that they can do the same thing, really go for their dreams.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for being here, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.